Welcome everyone to the weekly Wednesday rankings here with Jim Coventry and the RotoWire Fantasy Football YouTube page. Excited to dive into this, not just because we have, of course, a new glorious color on the weekly rankings sheet here, which you can see in front of you, but also Jim and I are going over what I think is going to be an awesome Thursday slate of games, including that Friday, Black Friday game with the Bears and Eagles too. For as much frustration as I've had with the NFL and scheduling primetime games, the Monday night game, especially this week with the Giants and Patriots, for example, complete dud of one, we have been blessed with what I think will be a great set of basically all-day football on Thanksgiving. Excited to go over those, and Jim and I will be going matchup by matchup with those. Again, you could see in the color there, the blue indicates the players that are playing on Thursday and Friday. I think it's going to be a key, especially for people setting lineups here. And a reminder for a lot of folks, if your waiver was on Thursday, it was bumped to today. So make sure you're setting your lineups. Devin Neal in particular, if you need to go out and get him, we'll talk about the Saints' new running back likely here as well in the show. But Jim, really pumped to talk about this slate, and I assume you agree, but this is going to be a real treat of three contests here on Thursday.
100%. First thing I want to point out, historically, we're used to that Lions game being at 12:30 Eastern. The league moved it back to noon Eastern. I mean, that's been the early time. The
noon Eastern or noon Central?
I'm sorry, noon Central. I
okay.
So up.
1 Eastern.
It's a half an hour. Right. Thank you. Yeah. So it used to be one. It used to be at the 30. Now it's at the top of the hour. And I'm going to screw up the time zone. So, Joe, you can get that straight for me. The game's a half an hour earlier than it's been since I was born, which is like 60 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, this is going to be a fun one. So we have arguably two teams entering on divergent paths. I think there's going to be some people hand-wringing about the Lions narrowly beating the Giants last week. Takes the Jahmyr Gibbs overtime carry right off the rip to go ahead and beat the Giants. Giants once again were up multiple scores entering the fourth quarter, end up losing. This is best for all parties, at least from the Giants' perspective. We know that they want to have a high draft pick. It does not matter that Jameis Winston's winning games in Detroit. And the Giants played the Packers pretty respectably 2 weeks prior as well. I think we can at this point say, at least with Winston as the quarterback, the Giants' offense is going to function up to a point where they are not one of the worst teams in the league, despite what their record might indicate. That the Lions ended up struggling is, I think, more an indication of the Giants being good as opposed to Lions being bad. However, there are things that we can point to here. Jameson Williams, 2 weeks ago, after having an awesome game with no Sam Laporta, completely absent despite how bad that Giants secondary was. We have Amon-Ra St. Brown being a critical factor. Jahmyr Gibbs having to go for a nuclear 260 total yards in order for the Lions offense to function. David Montgomery not involved a lot. And the offensive line, I think we're seeing some warts for Detroit. So now, flip that to what the Packers have. I mean, think back to 3 weeks ago, how at least I was frustrated as a Packer fan, and the optimism that we've had now over the past 2 weeks, the thrashing of J.J. McCarthy aside, he's likely not playing this week because he's bad. I'm sorry, concussed. This is...
I have a concussion too, Joe.
Yeah. There's a lot of optimism, at least in my Packer-centric Twitter, that would suggest the Packers will do well. The Packers did beat the Lions 2 years ago on Thanksgiving when the Lions were really on the ascending level of things, and I think you could argue that the Packers' offense is playing well. We'll have to see the stats of Josh Jacobs. Jordan Love is also banged up, and that is the catalyst for me.
Oh my gosh.
How healthy will the offense be for the Packers? Will it be Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, or possibly a returning Jaden Reed?
Oh my gosh, that is so many variables. I do want to start out though. Well, since you just brought the Packers, let's just go with that. So Jordan Love, right? It has not been a good season. He's had a couple good games. The limitations are definitely showing. The different receivers they have, they don't necessarily complement one another to get a cohesive orchestra in the passing game, and that's a bit of a problem. I'm expecting Josh Jacobs is fine here. Jacobs was pushing hard to play. Dude's a warrior. It basically was a bruise, and he has some swelling. The 4 extra days probably are a big deal to him healing, and they're going to need him. Detroit covers receiving backs pretty well, but they are not the juggernaut against the run they've been in past years. You can get them on the ground, and that's what the Packers are going to have to do. They are going to have to work Jacobs this game. He is going to have to be the key to the game and some play action. They're going to have to get some play action going, and they're going to have to get some short connections going because Love is limited. They can't have him getting hit here. So I think Romeo Doubs could pile up some receptions, a little more than usual. We're not looking for a huge ceiling game, but he could have a number of catches inches, which should be okay here. I don't know how many deep shots to Christian Watson they're going to take their shots on here, because again, that Lions pass rush could be a real thing. But really, Jacobs has to be the engine of the offense here, Joe.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about last Wednesday. I mentioned it on SiriusXM as well too. When I was doing the waiver wire article last week, Emmanuel Wilson was number one on my list. And by the way, hopefully you guys get to pick him up. Ended up working out pretty well. He was number one on my list because I would have been very surprised if he played both games. Now, Jacobs had said himself on Thursday of last week that if he misses a game, he is missing a game, that he will be ready for Thursday against the Lions. I think he's one of the toughest players in the NFL. I'm unlike basically anybody else in the NFL. I am trusting Jacobs at his word that he will be ready to play. And I wonder if the Packers, not that they should have entered that game against the Vikings thinking this way, but certainly at one point in that game, you're probably being like, I'm glad we didn't have Jacobs out there. We really didn't need him, right? Because J.J. McCarthy was so bad. The defense was playing so well for the Packers. Emmanuel Wilson really did a good job filling in for that too.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we kind of enter with that premise that Jacobs will be fine Thursday, you're absolutely correct, Jim. As a Packer fan, what I want to see happen is the run at least being instilled, and for an offense that it feels like run, pass, right? That's what they do basically every single drive. Certainly in the second half, that's all they tend to do. That's actually the way I'd want to do things, because Jordan Love is dealing with a left shoulder sprain. You actually saw it on the handoff to Emmanuel Wilson, I think on his first touchdown. He pivots with his right hand to do the handoff when typically you'd be trying to pivot with your left hand to go and do so. It's clearly bothering Jordan Love. To what degree that will matter when he's throwing the ball, I don't think we've really seen it yet. I actually think that the injury, for the most part, you don't see it when he's throwing the ball. I don't know if they want to play an explosive style of football, because you don't want to lean in and allow the Lions to also be explosive. It behooves the Packers to keep this kind of in a tempo that they feel comfortable with. Now, if they want to schedule an explosive play or two, they certainly can do so. And again, I'll keep reiterating it. I don't know if it happens this week, but this was the landmark time for Jayden Reed to be activated after having surgery on his foot and shoulder. He was available to practice last Friday. He's been practicing here this week. If Jayden Reed is active, even if he plays 15 or 20 snaps, like we saw Christian Watson do in his return a couple weeks ago, if Jayden Reed is active, that is the complement to the Packers receivers that we are looking for. Doesn't matter about Matthew Golden or Dontavian Wicks or anything else. If Jayden Reed can be more flexible for that receiving group, then you have your explosive plays on, I think, whatever command the Packers want to do, and that's a huge boon for the offense.
Man, the one thing, and we both know this, the Packers' criminal underutilization of Jayden Reed. And when he comes back, that's always the problem in ranking him. We know he's super talented. We know he can make big plays. We know if they throw him 10 targets, he'll go off. They won't do it. So, but he helps the team, you're right, because he adds a layer underneath, an explosive element defenses have to be aware of. And if they do get him the ball, look out. So it would be a great opportunity to use him in this game. But again, I have him ranked lower, A, because we have to wait till he's officially cleared to play, but B, because again, that criminal underuse. And remember this, fantasy managers, what I said, we know the talent, but we also know the history of not using him right. But like Joe, you're 100% right. He is a huge catalyst in this offense, and he really forces defenses to view them quite a bit differently. Like you said, I don't think a lot of points are scored here. I think this is a game where the Packers, like we both agreed upon, they want to set the tone with the run game. They want to take some clock. They want to run a ball control possession passing game, because they don't want to expose their quarterback too much. And I think that can be the winning attitude in this game.
Now, flip side for the Lions, you could almost argue it's the same sort of game plan. You don't want Jared Goff exposed to Micah Parsons, Devontae Wyatt, Lucas Van Ness, the pass rush. Like, that's the part that you don't want to have happen. Now, Quay Walker didn't play against the Vikings, didn't really matter, but he has been largely been one of the catalysts for a better run defense that we've seen in past years. If Quay Walker is unavailable, and it sounds like he was at least, I think he was limited yesterday in practice, didn't practice on the walkthrough, whatever it is, Monday. I'm not expecting Quay Walker to be out there for the Packers. That's a big loss, even though Isaiah McDuffie played well against the Vikings last week. I would almost say you'd want to have Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery basically touch the ball 30 times. Like, I mean, that's the best path to success for the Lions. But if they're unable to stop the Packers defense, Packers offense, or if you're in a position where you feel like you're trying to change the momentum a little bit and you can't just do it with fourth down conversions, there might be more explosive plays. And also Keyshawn Nixon, probably the best corner for the Packers, likely out as well too, the stinger that he suffered against the Vikings. So that also alludes to the passing attack maybe being better than you'd assume, at least the way the Lions would try to do things initially.
You know what? The Lions, have a lot of problems on offense. And Joe, you'll remember I detailed this in the preseason. I said the Lions are going to have a problem with their interior line. They turned the complete thing over, and they were optimists saying it's going to be fine. And I said, no, it's not going to be fine. When teams can press the interior, and every opponent the Lions have played that could pressure the interior has messed their offense up. And Jahmyr Gibbs, like you said, bailed them out last week because the Giants cannot stop the run. This team and the Packers, not only can they stop the run, they are amazing against outside runs, which where Gibbs makes his living, and they're very good covering receiving backs. I rank Gibbs, you see, at running back too, because he's Jahmyr Gibbs, because he could do special things. But this is not a good matchup for him. And don't be surprised if this is a floor game. But he's Gibbs. He could break 2 long touchdowns and shred that all away. So you're not hesitating getting him in your lineup. But in DFS, you might be a little bit concerned because this is not a great matchup. And then the problem for Montgomery, where Montgomery runs is where the weakness of that line is the interior. And that's why Montgomery's not having a good year. Oh, maybe he's beginning the decline phase, but he is not getting help where he used to get it. That interior line of the Lions always got him to the second level. That's not happening anymore. And then the passing game. Because of that interior line, defenses know Goff's a statue in the pocket. So if you can either pressure from the interior or send stunts, which means defenders on the outside loop them in, get away from Penei Sewell, get away from Taylor Decker, send your best pass rushers up the middle to crush the pocket. At that point, you've seen it. Everybody's seen it. Jared Goff is in trouble as soon as pressure comes in the middle, and the Lions can't do a thing to stop it. When you're watching that game tomorrow, look how many times the Packers get Micah Parsons rushing from the middle. And that's going to be a big thing in this game. And that's what's going to kill Jameson Williams. Now, Dan Campbell, before the goose egg, was better at getting him a little bit more underneath instead of vertical routes. That's the only way they're going to get him going. There's not going to be, they can't take the chance of deep shots because they could implode. St. Brown will be fine here. St. Brown's going to get his usual usage, but it's a very problematic game for the Lions. And unless Gibbs can really do some Superman things, this is going to be a low-scoring game for the Lions as well.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I think it's going to be a good one. I think both teams have like we always say styles meets fight, right? I think that this actually is going to be a really good fight, that both teams kind of know what they want to do. They know what each other team wants to do, and they can't really limit each other. So it's going to be a matter of who makes the uncharacteristic mistake. Maybe there's a penalty, like a false start. I'm thinking my Packers in particular. But I think that's going to be really the large catalyst for this game. I'm excited. I think it's going to be a good football game overall. Real quick, I know that we're having some user questions in here. Again, the blue color indicates teams that are playing here on Thursday and Friday. We have the other normal color system that we do on Wednesdays as well too. I think we're going to stick to just trying to talk about the Thanksgiving games and the Black Friday game themselves. But if you have any start-sit questions, it's largely there emphasized on the rankings, which you can see right here in front of you. Let's move over to the Chiefs and Dallas Cowboys game, another one that I'm very fascinated to watch. I was not surprised that the Cowboys ended up beating the Eagles last week. I was a little surprised the Eagles got out to a 21-0 lead and then lost it. That's the part that was a little bit shocking to me, and I don't know if the Cowboys figured out something that the rest of the NFL has not with this Eagles defense. We know, having done fantasy football for as long as we have, hey, James Bradberry, let's throw at him. That corner stinks. And Bradberry left the game at various points, and that's actually when George Pickens ended up looking crazy because you had Cooper DeJean, a smaller corner, trying to cover George Pickens. Lo and behold, you have the athletic George Pickens get involved, do the things that he is capable of doing as an outside boundary receiver. Why the Steelers couldn't do this more, I will never know. But I love to see a team actually put the best player in the best spot. That's what happened. Cowboys end up coming back. You have the weapon that is Brandon Aubrey getting that win for them. And it really does change. It feels like the whole tilt of the football field when you have Brandon Aubrey as your kicker. All right, fast forward to here on Thursday. Cowboys always play well, it feels like, at home. This is basically their Super Bowl every single year because they have this primetime game. Everyone's comatose on turkey, either whining about having to watch the Giants, which I feel like is always the Cowboys' opponent, or, oh, well, Dak Prescott isn't actually that good. I've had that argument with my uncle all the time as we're watching this game. Chiefs beat the Colts last week and are still continuing to play for their playoff lives. I guess I'll ask the question to you first, Jim. Who does this game – who matters more to this team? I'm sorry. What team cares about this game more? Obviously, both teams want to win. Chiefs need to win to be able to keep pace. Cowboys need to win on a national level and also have a very vague outside chance of making the playoffs as well, too. But they could really establish themselves in the national conversation if they beat the Super Bowl participant from last year in the Chiefs and the dynasty that they have been. I mean, there's stakes on both sides of this.
Don't be surprised if the Cowboys, if they're able to win this game, which I'm not saying they are, they're in the playoff race. Because look, you have that NFC North. Bears 8-3, Packers 7-3-1,
They play
Lions
each other
7-4.
twice.
Right. They're all
Mhm.
playing each other. So those teams are going to have some losses. They're going to have losses between each other. The Panthers, forget it. They're not going anywhere. So the Cowboys, it's not just a long shot, but it's probably a 25% chance of making the playoffs, which I know is still a long shot, but it's not like a 2% chance if they win this game. If they come out 6-5-1 and that next week Lions game, that's not looking all that daunting right now because they can outscore that team. So Dallas right now is fun to watch, and the Chiefs, of course, are just as desperate. The one thing for the Chiefs, the only thing that makes it less important, it's a non-conference game, but they need the wins. This won't hurt them for tiebreakers, but both teams are desperate for this one. That's what makes this game great. Let's start on the Dallas side of the ball, though. So Dallas has some real advantages and one disadvantage. This is not the best setup for George Pickens because the Chiefs are very good at taking away explosive plays. They're very good at defending outside or perimeter receivers, very good against those. Now, you still start Pickens because Pickens has got it done pretty much every game this year, maybe not in the season opener. They had that rain delay in the second half, but he gets it done every game. So you're not worried, but this might not be the ceiling game. But here's where their advantages lie. First of all, CeeDee Lamb often will get moved into the slot. Huge advantage for Dallas. That is the Achilles heel of the Chiefs defense, and there's not much they can do to change that. The other thing, the Chiefs are terrible when an offense uses play action. Fake the handoff to the running back and then throw. They're horrible. Their linebackers just don't react well to them. And Dallas has been using play action at a really high and really successful rate. So initially I was thinking about ranking Pickens ahead of Lamb because of the recent production. And then I said, to style this game, this is a CeeDee Lamb game. This is a game where Lamb gets 10 or 11 catches for 120 and finds the end zone. That's that kind of game you're looking at. And Javonte Williams, he hasn't had the touchdowns, but the yardage has been decent. And this is not a terrible run matchup. So Williams looks good here, but the play action, I think that tells the game. And I think even though Kansas City's good against tight ends, I don't think Jake Ferguson's your typical tight end, more of a slot receiver. And I think the play action does work for him as well.
Yeah, and more so the way the Cowboys have to use Jake Ferguson as basically the third receiver. That's another reason as to, too. Like other teams like, I'm saying the Bengals, for example, this is not a good indication here on the later game, right? Because Gesicki will have to be a bigger factor. But that's not we're scheming things for the tight end, whereas the Cowboys have to, as Ferguson being the third target of that group. All right, so if we think the Cowboys offense can move the ball, put themselves in scoring range, again, the tilt that Aubrey provides to the football field will allow the Cowboys basically one first down with the way the special teams is set right now, and you're in field goal range. Okay, Cowboys will score points. To what degree against the Chiefs defense? Unclear. But if we're going to say that they're going to be the range of 20 to 27, nobody's surprised by that. Okay, so if the Cowboys are scoring points, well, Jim, the Chiefs have to as well. Good news, Cowboys defense, one of the worst in the league. And yes, they go ahead and acquire Logan Wilson, Quinnen Williams. They have looked better after the trade deadline. I want to be clear. They looked better because the opponents they played are awful, right? I mean, that's part of this.
Part of it.
However,
sure.
Quinnen Williams, in particular, in the interior, can take away one aspect of that Chiefs offense. And if they can't use that interior run, you're having Mahomes have to be special. Of course, Mahomes can do that. We know he definitely can. It's tough to be Superman every single game, though, Jim. And I'm a little bit worried that without that interior rushing attack, because Quinnen Williams is one of the better nose tackles in the league, you're going to see the Chiefs kind of pressing a little bit. And maybe they pepper targets to Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce. And that's how they have to move down the field, not with explosive plays.
So, yes, spot on and all that. The Chiefs are without their right guard, Trey Smith. He is one of the best right guards in the league. He had a high ankle sprain, which he suffered Sunday. This is a big hit for them. You mentioned Quinnen Williams, but the addition of him on that interior line, that has made his partner next to him, Kenny Clark, even better. Those two, the Chiefs are not going to be able to run the ball inside here. With Trey Smith out and that interior duo for Dallas, you said the opponents have been easy, but they are really looking like a completely different defense. Here's the thing. Passing the ball, you're right. Mahomes is going to have to get it done here. And what's going to happen here is some teams will play, like recently we saw the Colts have good success playing man-to-man coverage, but they had Sauce Gardner and Charvarius Ward. That was a good duo to have. And the Chiefs figured it out late, but they didn't have a touchdown till like 9 minutes left in that game against the Colts. But if Dallas plays, man, those corners are not that good. So that's not an antidote. Dallas will have to play more zone, and the Chiefs shred that. Rashee Rice, whatever that hamstring thing was, he's off the injury report. So this is a massive Rashee Rice game. And like you said, Travis Kelce, he's going to continue to get work underneath. You never know. Xavier Worthy doesn't get worked in as much as you'd like. The deep shots haven't been there. He's really a risky fantasy play. But I do think with that Rice connection and Kelce, who wasn't used a lot last week, I think that's going to be the point. So I think Dallas just does not have the secondary players. See, we could take that lazy approach and say, when you drop 7 in coverage, Mahomes, it's kryptonite. But you got to be a good secondary to do that. You can't just drop any old group of bums back there and say, well, it's zone, so Mahomes stinks now. You can't really do that. So I think Mahomes does have the advantage. And the pass rush of Dallas is good. But again, Josh Simmons, the left tackle, has been back a couple weeks. I think that helps a little bit for Mahomes.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask this question because I'm curious. There might be some people doing Thanksgiving DFS or the Thursday, Friday DFS, or like I think on this channel or on the RotoWire YouTube channel, I forget which one of the two, Alan put together the Thanksgiving draft slate where we all pick teams. I had St. Brown, I think, as my first pick in the 5th round. I'm sorry, like 5th overall. Rashee Rice goes ahead of him. Jamar Chase goes ahead of him. I see on the list right now we have Rashee Rice, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, then St. Brown. In my mind, I don't think the difference of St. Brown to Rashee Rice for these games is anymore between 3 or 4 PPR points. Like I think they're all kind of grouped together. Would you say that's the same? Like basically every one of these top receivers playing Thursday has a very, very high floor, and then of course the chance for a ceiling game is a little bit different in the games in which we assume more points will be scored.
Yeah, you said and we agreed, those 3 players, Rice, Lamb, and St. Brown, they are going to be pivotal parts of their offensive attacks. St. Brown's the one that's going to be the one that can reliably get targets in that game style against the Packers. And like I said, Lamb, when they move him to the slot half the time, and they might do it more this game, he has a massive advantage in the play action advantage. And then, like we said with Rashee Rice, whether Dallas plays man or zone, I don't think it really matters here. Rice is in for an explosion game, which he has him almost every week.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, I mean, like for Rice's explosion game is basically a ceiling for a whole bunch of others, right? Like the floor that Rice gives you just right now within that offense is fantastic. The Chiefs will be getting Isaiah Pacheco back. He's missed the past couple weeks. I had a number of people ask, do I play Kareem Hunt this week? And I guess I thought, well, Hunt still has the better chance to fall into the end zone, and if the over-under total at 52.5 points is anywhere right, like Vegas seems to indicate, there's going to be opportunities for it. It is a lesser Kareem Hunt game, though, right? Like I would imagine he's probably – I don't even see him on your rankings right now. Maybe I'm missing it. But
let me scroll up a little bit.
Yeah, I see Pacheco at 33.
Wait, Hunt's got to be on there somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're right next to each other. Pacheco 100,
gotcha.
33, 34.
Gotcha.
33, 34.
All right. Would you play like Devin Neal, for example? And this is going to be a question we'll have to ask, right? Because there's a bunch of teams playing on Thursday. We don't know if Alvin Kamara is out for sure. We can kind of assume so. I would play Devin Neal right over Kareem Hunt. It sounds like you're in the same spot.
Yes, I absolutely would. I put Neal at running back 26. I put a yellow tag because of the Kamara injury. Remember that yellow tag means either the player's injured or there's an ancillary injury that dings that player's potential for a ranking. So, but Neal right now 26. And yes, against Miami's been a really good run defense the last few weeks, but Neal had 7 targets in that last game. And that's why we love him. I mean, I assume most of you are in PPR leagues. If you're in half PPR, you might move him down like beneath the next 2 beneath Walker and Judkins, but Devin Neal, strong play. You play him over those Kansas City guys. Remember, like Joe and I said, even though Dallas has had some weaker opponents, that run defense right now is for real with Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark, and that's where Hunt likes to run, and that's where Pacheco likes to run. And remember, I said earlier, right guard Trey Smith is out. That's a huge knock to that Kansas City run game.
I have more Neal-related questions as one of the top waiver pickups. Maybe we'll get to that at the end of the show. I want to make sure we're still discussing the Thanksgiving games before we deviate to that. So I feel good about the Cowboys' offensive side of things. We've talked about that. The Chiefs' side as well, too. Who do you think wins? I mean, we didn't ask that the Packers lines. I think it's just going to be a good game overall. I have no idea which way. There probably is a lean on Cowboys-Chiefs. I don't know if I have a definitive answer, though, on this one.
I tell you what, I like the 3.5 points with Dallas to give you 3.5 points.
Agree.
But you know what? Here's what I really think comes down to it. I think Dallas has the ball late with a chance to win, and Spagnuolo cooks up some kind of a blitz, and Dak makes a mistake. I just think that's what happens. I think that Spagnuolo is going to go win the game for the Chiefs.
And he certainly has done that throughout the course of his career, especially as the defense coordinator for the Chiefs. That will be another good game to watch. If we could say one of these games is the worst of the Thursday Thanksgiving slates. It will be the return of Joe Burrow, quarterback for the Bengals, against the Ravens here. I don't understand why it's happening. I understand that Joe Burrow's a competitor, right? Okay, Joe, you're not an athlete because you don't get. It's just moronic that the Bengals are doing this when the playoffs are out of reach. But whatever. All right, Joe Burrow, now quarterback for the Bengals. Ravens defense will look good from a metric perspective when you see, Burrow's going against the 7th best defense in the Ravens. They've gotten way better since the bye. We've talked about this now plenty of times on the Wednesday show. A lot of these guys have gotten healthy. Who has not gotten healthy is Lamar Jackson. And Jim, I spent 2 hours answering questions on the Fantasy Football Reddit page last night. A lot of fun. Thank you guys for participating in that. 30% were dedicated to, do I play Lamar Jackson this week? Do I play Lamar Jackson rest of season? What's going on? I have to keep the faith because I don't know what else to do with this. I don't think these injuries are limiting Lamar Jackson's rushing ability to the extent that we've seen. And yet, on paper, the past 3 weeks, Lamar Jackson has not been running very, very effectively, and the offense has not been functioning the way you'd want it to. I think we have to give a little bit of credit to the Jets defense, the Browns defense in particular, who we thought were pushovers and haven't quite been that way. But Lamar Jackson has been a massive disappointment since coming back from that hamstring injury. Does that change against one of history's 50 worst defenses that we have seen over the last 30 years? Now, the Bengals have played a little bit better as of late. I have to keep faith in Lamar Jackson, but I don't blame somebody else if they choose not to.
Man, this is rough. Lamar Jackson, I was watching that game with the Jets last week. There were 2 chances. He couldn't run past the linebacker. He's not right. He could not beat a linebacker in the open field. That's not Lamar Jackson. I ranked him at quarterback 8. Do you know how hard that is to move Lamar Jackson down to quarterback 8 in rankings? And I still felt like it was too high. Still feel like it's too high. But that's where I have to leave him. Right now, yes, he had a hamstring issue, but he had an ankle injury. He had a toe injury. And I know these might be these phantom Wednesday injuries, but I don't think they are. I think these are compensatory injuries. I think because of the hamstring, he's had to run differently, which caused him, to twist an ankle and then hurt a toe. And this, I believe, is impacting his passing production. I believe his base as a passer is compromised by this. So I think we're not seeing the passing numbers because he can't have his normal footwork and set, and it's a problem. And then Derrick Henry, for fantasy, he was fine. I think he scored a couple touchdowns. Like Henry looks slow. Henry does not look like the same Derrick Henry. It's not coming back. For fantasy, like I said, he's fine enough. He'll get it done for you. He might find the end zone. But his yards per carry, his breaking tackles, it's not anything close to what we've seen in the past. So right now, even though they are playing the Bengals, this is a bad, compared to Ravens standards, this is a bad Ravens offense right now. Now I moved Mark Andrews up to tight end 9 because it's like Cincinnati is like 90 yards a game to the tight end. And they give the most touchdowns, the most receptions. So Mark Andrews, and I even moved,
I took Mark Andrews over Jake Ferguson in our Thanksgiving and Black Friday game,
and it was
overall.
Smart. It was smart.
I want to stay on Lamar Jackson for a second because I think this is actually really key. You had said it's not coming back for Derrick Henry. With all these compounding injuries, especially lower body ones, the soft tissue injuries, we know the history of this as people that have followed fantasy football as long as we have. We understand what that looks like. There are some times, and I don't know what Lamar Jackson would be in this case, there are some times where these guys do get better. And it's like, oh, okay, he's back. And what I'm worried about is missing out on when that happens or if that happens. If you are more leaning towards the if that happens, maybe it is time to trade Lamar Jackson, who, if you look on RotoWire right now, YouTube 15 gets you 15% off code to RotoWire from subscription perspective. But we have this tool on the site. The rest of season schedule for the Ravens has Lamar Jackson as the quarterback 1 rest of the way. It's Drake May, Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson, Shedeur Sanders. Don't do that. But it's Drake May, Lamar Jackson, and Jared Goff as 3 of the best 5 quarterbacks on our rest of the season schedule. But if Lamar Jackson can't be Lamar Jackson, I don't know what to do. And I know I will be stuck playing him every single week if I have him on my roster, because I will hate myself if I get it wrong, right? Like, this is a Joe Bartel problem. But I guess to the people listening right now and who will be watching the Ravens on a national perspective Thursday night, what happens if we never get Lamar Jackson back? Like that kind of guy. Because you could probably still trade him and get, I don't know, Jacoby Brissett or Daniel Jones and something if you wanted to. I mean, that's the level we would have to kind of consider, I think.
You're right. I think you're right. Oh my gosh. In the last 3 games, these are Lamar Jackson's fantasy points. 16.4 against Minnesota, 10.7 against Cleveland, 8.8 against the Jets. Now, if you add those up, that's about 36, 37 points. That's a good one game for Lamar Jackson.
Right.
You're expecting 25 points a game. He's at 16, 10, and 8. And it's not like the Cleveland defense is good, great. But the Minnesota, that's not a great defense. And the Jets, that's not a great defense. And this is a real problem. So, look, maybe magically at some point Jackson gets healthy. I'm not willing to bet on it right now because I just think the more he plays through it, because he has to play, because they've got to win the division. And that's not going to be locked up for a while if it does. So, like you said, you could move him on name value. And I think I put him in the trade article in RotoWire. I think I put him in there. Can't remember I did which. I know, but that's a player you do want to consider moving on name value because somebody's going to think that, oh, well, he'll be fine. He's still dealing with the hamstring. And somebody will think I'm going to win my league by getting him. Get a quarterback who can help you now.
Interesting. Disappointing from my dynasty shares that are really relying on Lamar Jackson to be the guy I want him to be. All right, the Bengals side of things, arguably more interesting, frankly. I mean, we could talk about the Ravens defense being better, which it has been, and we could also talk about no T. Higgins out with a concussion. Hopefully he gets better. We'll have to see if he's even available next week. You have Jamar Chase returning from Spitgate. That's great. And then, I mean, like overall, Burrow's impact, how much different is that than Joe Flacco? And will Burrow be completely right? I made the argument. I just want to see it first. I don't want to have to play Joe Burrow immediately and have him play over Jared Goff or over Matthew Stafford. I can't tell me how many times I had Stafford or Joe Burrow. I'm like, stop it. Don't be dumb, guys. Like,
no,
I get the excitement for Joe Burrow returning, but there's no guarantee that he'll just be right and no T. Higgins to boot as well. Like, what are you expecting from this Bengals offense and Joe Burrow in particular?
So, first of all, Joe, how many times have we seen Joe Burrow come back from injury to start a season and he started slow? It's like every year, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's attributed to Zach Taylor frequently, but it could easily be attributed to Joe Burrow as well, too. He's a part of that catalyst for sure.
So his history of coming back from injury has been that he isn't on fire week 1. The loss of Higgins is massive here. Jamar Chase, look, I still put him at wide receiver 3. He's going to see an incredible amount of targets. But the Ravens aren't fools. The Ravens will throw as much attention as possible. If Yoshi Voss beats him, great. If Gesicki beats him, great. If Fant beats him, great.
Tinsley. I like Tinsley. I just want to say.
Yeah, Mitch Tinsley. Yeah, he's a good player.
Yeah,
good player.
But right, if Tinsley beats you, fine. You're like, okay,
they're
whatever.
fine with that.
Right.
So Chase could still have 150 and 2 touchdowns. You know that. But don't be surprised again if this is a game where they limit him. That they just Kyle Hamilton he's a joker. He's a great. They move him in the box to stop the run. They're not putting him in the box this week. They're playing him back. They're playing him back to help with the Jamar Chase problem because Chase is the one who can beat you. Chase Brown isn't beating you. It's Jamar Chase who can beat you. So they're going to be ready for that. Now, again, Chase, you start him in fantasy. You're not worried, but just understand the range of outcomes is wider than usual here. Chase Brown's in a good spot. Chase Brown has had like 100 scrimmage yards, at least 4 straight games, I believe.
Yes, yep.
And again, I'm telling you, Kyle Hamilton will not be spending much time in the box. So that Ravens run defense goes back to being just ordinary. And the run blocking has actually been decent lately for the Bengals. It's gotten better. So Chase Brown's going to get his. And don't be surprised if Chase Brown catches 7 to 9 balls in this game. I do think P. Ryan may be coming back from the high ankle.
Yeah.
I think they really, really need
So that's
Chase
where I was going
Brown.
to go with this because we do have recent precedent of Joe Burrow and Chase Brown together earlier this season. And that was really during that stretch where Chase Brown was one of the more fantasy disappointments we've seen in recent memory. You have Smashed P. Ryan back as well, too. That's been their preferred pass catcher at times. I had noticed that Chase Brown was lowest among the Thanksgiving running backs, right, outside of the Chiefs' backfield. I mean, you still have Chase Brown high. Is it fair to, I mean, like Flacco being the veteran quarterback that he is, sometimes it's okay to just be like, all right, I know this play isn't going anywhere. Let's get 3 yards out of Chase Brown, live to see another day. Burrow might not have that same mentality. And whereas we've been living off of in PPR leagues, the 7 targets Brown's been getting the past couple weeks, I don't know if that happens with Chase Brown, whether it be Smashed P. Ryan coming back or Joe Burrow now as the quarterback. Like I think that actually might be a bit of a hit on Chase Brown's value.
Here's what we have to understand, Joe. When that happened, that situation early in the year, we had Higgins and Chase. the dynamic that defense were playing was everybody was back, but the whole point was Pirine in to pass protect. That was the key because you wanted the ball to get to Chase and Higgins. The game plan has to be extremely different with no Higgins because, again, Yoshivas, Tinsley, Yasicki, fine, whatever, but it's not T. Higgins. So the whole game plan has to be different, and they're going to need explosive plays. And Samaje Perine does not get them explosive plays. Remember the end of last season, all the explosives Chase Brown had as a receiver with Burrow when the play broke down, dumping it off to him. They need Chase Brown because if it's Perine in with his 4-yard catch, 6-yard catch, it's not helping them. They need somebody that can crack off 15, 18. They're playing for their playoff lives if they're even alive. They probably aren't, but look, if they do win this game, it's winning the division. It's not a wild card. They're trying to weasel their way back. Chase Brown is part of their solution. Samaje Perine at this point, they don't have the luxury to use him that way, I don't think.
Baltimore, Cincinnati. This is the lowest of the Thursday games on the Thanksgiving slate, do you think? Lowest scoring, I should say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Look, these divisional games, they can always go wild.
North, yeah.
Right. They can go any direction. This game could be 13-10, and this game could be 40-37, and neither would surprise me. But right now, with the state of Jackson's health at quarterback, and with no T. Higgins and Burrow coming back from an injury, this does lend itself to thinking this would be a lower scoring game.
I want to make sure I save a little bit of time for a few specific waiver wire questions and weekly ranking questions I have for you, Jim. But let's talk about that final game on Friday. Eagles, Bears. I think that one's taking place at 3 p.m. Eastern. That's a weird time as well, too, or even like 2 Central. It was a weird start time. I remember I saw that.
Correct time, yes.
Could be a weird game overall, too, because, boy, pick whatever Jekyll and Hyde's going to come out from the Eagles on a half to drive basis. And welcome to the dungeon here of the Eagles defense for Caleb Williams, who is going to finally see his first test in about a month and a half. I have been impressed with that Bears offense. I think Ben Johnson has been very clearly a good coach and upgrade relative to what the Bears have had now the past 2 decades or more. I don't know if this is going to be an obvious place where the Bears offense does well. And if we're just setting our Thanksgiving and Black Friday DFS lineups, Bengals pass catchers are probably the lowest among this whole group. That's not to say they can't do it, though, and we just watched George Pickens dominate a bad and bruised Eagles secondary just 5 days ago or 4 days ago, whatever it was. Like, how do you see the Bears offense being successful or not successful on Friday's game?
The Bears want to run the ball, but I don't think this is the week they're going to have consistent success doing that. The matchup is not great. That's the whole bomb. The Eagles are going to be very good against the run. Bears will have intermittent success on the ground. And one thing for fantasy managers, last week, it looks like it's a hot hand approaching that backfield now. Swift wasn't getting it done. Monangai outcarried him 12-8. So I think that you're going to have a real issue as a fantasy manager now as to which one to start. It's easier with Monangai because you weren't expecting a lot to start. You were considering him as a flex anyway. But Swift, you were counting on like as a strong running back 2 earlier in the season, and now there's a problem there. So I do think that they're going to have an issue running the ball. And then passing. I have to think and they will shadow at times. It was unlike Vic Fangio to do that, but I think Quinyon Mitchell will be on Rome Odunze. The Bears have made it clear that's their guy, and defenses have responded. They use cloud coverage. They'll use bracket on him. They'll put a top corner on him, and Rome Odunze has had more down than up in the last 6 weeks. So the Bears are going to need another one from DJ Moore. Now, it's been up and down, but he does get schemed open in the middle of the field. That's where you can attack. And Nakuba, their safety, he like had a serious injury this week, so he's not playing. But you can definitely attack there. And the Bears are going to need to get DJ Moore like schemed up in the middle of the field like they did against Pittsburgh last week. Different scenario, but they're going to need him. But counting on that Caleb to DJ Moore connection, it's crazy because it's really hit or miss week to week. So it's not a great matchup for the Bears. And we know that Fangio's going to get some pressure. And Caleb Williams has been good at buying time. So really it's going to be the cat and mouse game of what Caleb Williams can do under pressure. It's an interesting game for the Bears, but this is a tough spot because the Eagles defense is one of the better ones in the league.
All right, so Eagles defense probably limiting Bears offense. Oh, well, this should be an easy Eagles win because they can not score or move the ball or do things consistently. I don't know what to make of the Eagles offense. How do you score 21 points in the first half? And I thought looking good doing so, getting A.J. Brown involved. You have Devonta Smith finish with a pretty good game, respectable game PPR-wise, and then not do anything in the second half against that Cowboys defense. Say what you wanted about divisional games. The Cowboys defense, despite all the acquisitions, is not this juggernaut of anything that we've seen. Bears defense, I don't think is that same way either, but I have no confidence in whatever Philadelphia is going to do. How do you see it with Jalen Hurts and company?
You know, they have such a Kevin Patullo problem, the offensive coordinator. There is no identity on this offense. When a defense makes adjustments, he has no clue what to do with it. And, you know, when we looked like last week, it looked like you think Barkley would have had a good game against Dallas because on the season, Dallas wasn't a good run defense. But we pointed out there are vastly different defense with Quinn and Williams. Again, it made Kenny Clark better. So Barkley, look, there's no excuse. He should be playing better than he is. But his offensive line, they're down right tackle Lane Johnson. That's a problem. But I do think this is a big day for Saquon Barkley. The Bears are not only a bad run defense on both inside and outside runs, they were without their top 3 linebackers last week. And if they get some of them back, because we know one of them went on IR, I think Edwards went on IR. But if they, even if they get them back, they're not going to be 100%. And Hippolyte, their 4th linebacker, got knocked out of that game early. Mm-hmm. So they're already a bad run defense, but they're going to be either limited or missing linebackers again. So this is a game. They're going to get Barkley going here. And Grady Jarrett, who they picked up on the interior defensive line, you could tell he's slow. The Falcons were smart for getting rid of him. This is going to be a Saquon day. You're going to finally see one. Since that Giants game like a month ago, you finally get him back. And I think they're not going to go away from him too often here. This is one that's going to work for them.
So I mentioned Lamar Jackson on that rest of the season schedule tool on RotoWire. Again, you can go ahead and look at that. YouTube 15 gets you 15% off code to go ahead and check that out. Running back Saquon Barkley is actually in that same spot. Running back 1 rest of the way on our metrics is Saquon Barkley. Mm-hmm. I said this on the Angel Fire radio show, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, every Saturday. I would trade for Saquon Barkley.
Yes.
However,
yes.
There's a real possibility Eagles aren't playing for anything by week 17. That loss to the Cowboys probably ruled them out of getting the 1 seed between the between the Seahawks and Rams. And they will likely have the division locked up at that point. You're not playing for 2K Saquon Barkley anymore like they were last year. Like that would be my only reservation that come to the fantasy championships. Maybe the Eagles do something different. But to get to that point, Saquon Barkley, the Eagles have the best rest of season schedule in terms of fantasy running backs. I think this is going to be the breakout game. And if I'm trying to trade for Saquon Barkley, I would be desperate to do it before Friday, when everyone can watch this game happen, can watch Saquon Barkley get used, and the narrative changes. It will be much harder to trade for Saquon Barkley Saturday, Sunday, Monday, week 14. If you're going to try to make a trade for Saquon Barkley to help your season in the fantasy postseason, it really needs to be today, quite frankly, because you're not doing anything on Thursday, or weird sickos might be able to do trades, but it has to be today if you're trading for Saquon Barkley. I guess otherwise, we saw A.J. Brown have a bit of a resurgence against the Cowboys. That feels like that's the secondary that's not very good. If there's one area that the Bears defense is better, they are getting healthier in the secondary. But if Saquon Barkley just wins the Eagles the game on Friday, everyone would be happy with that result. So I don't know if they have to force feed A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith.
Yes, and that's the logical point, and there's our problem. We're trying to impose logic on a team that has none, and they don't have the need to fix it because they're winning most games.
Right.
They lost one earlier in the season. You thought they'd make adjustments. They really didn't. And they lost last week. And it's like, all right, well, they're probably not making adjustments there. They probably just rationalized the game off as one of those things. And they totally need to be doing something different. And you know, it's funny because the head coach, Nick Sirianni, he was asked a question about, they're going to make a shakeup or something, with the play calling. And he said no, because they don't feel the desperation to do it. This is going to bite them. It's going to bite them in the playoffs at some point. That the lack of flow and play calling and design, it's all going to bite them. And starting your Eagles, look, I have to rake A.J. Brown lower every week now just because he has so many bad weeks. But you can't. How do you sit him? How do you sit him? Because any week he could get you 100 yards and 2 touchdowns or a touchdown any week. But there's no rhyme or reason to it. And there's nothing I could do from a rational standpoint because Kevin Patullo he's out of his depth.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just traded A.J. Brown away in my Dynasty League. It was A.J. Brown, Matthew Golden, a first-round pick this year for Amon-Ra St. Brown. And of course, then you have A.J. Brown just go nuclear, and it's like, okay, well, that's ridiculous. Maybe I don't have to do that kind of deal or trade to this level. It is what it is. I real quick, I want to talk about two of the weekly ranking guys, and I think this goes back to my Reddit conversation on the Reddit Fantasy Football page from yesterday. A lot of Devin Neal-related stuff. So you have Devin Neal at 26. We had news yesterday. Alvin Kamara did suffer a strained PCL, which is normally a multi-week thing, but not a season ender. Well, the Saints are 2-8 or whatever it is. They're awful. There's really no reason to have the veteran Alvin Kamara come back. I know I said that with Joe Burrow earlier. Teams will do whatever it is, players and competitors. It would behoove the Saints to see what they have in the 6th-round pick, Devin Neal. No Kendre Miller behind him either, so this should be the backfield to own. I had seen some incorrect analysis that Devin Neal is basically Theo Riddick. That is not what Neal is at all as a prospect. 3 straight 1,000-yard rushing years in college. He was known more as a runner than a pass catcher. That he had 7 targets last week felt far more to me like the Saints raised their hands up and said, oh, I don't know what to do without Alvin Kamara. What if Taysom Hill runs the ball 15 times at the 1-yard line, does nothing every time? Okay, here's Devin Neal, 7 targets. Like, moving forward, I think you can scheme Devin Neal a bit more effectively, and I do, and this may be wrong, but I felt from the collegiate tape that I watched, he's a really good runner. And I'm of the opinion that if you have Devin Neal, we're talking about maybe a waiver wire winner for you come the fantasy postseason because of the volume and also the opportunity that he's going to have in the Saints offense with what they need him to do. Are you in that same sort of line, or am I being a bit too aggressive making that statement here in week 13?
Devin Neal, like you said, is the running back to have, but Taysom Hill had 10 carries in that game to 7 for Neal. I don't know why this guy doesn't go away. He's 35 years old. He's off an ACL last year. I don't understand the obsession with him. Whatever he was, he's not that guy anymore. But yet he's not going away. He's like Devin Singletary. The apocalypse will hit, and there'll be 2 players left on the field. It'll be Taysom Hill and it'll be Devin Singletary. So I don't know what the deal there is, but he is going to siphon some carries off. There's like no doubt about that. And the goal line, whatever reason, he's going to be at the goal line. But again, Neal's going to be involved, and they have to dump the ball off a lot, and that's good for him. But I do think, hey, if he does get on a roll running, maybe the coaching staff's like, let's take a longer look. So we have to hope that works out. The offensive line's been banged up. They've been out Eric Quater center for a while, so that's problematic. But that said, if he gets going, you definitely want to roster him. You definitely want to play him in your PPR leagues. But it is nerve-wracking because of the Taysom Hill thing.
Yeah, and you have him over Quinshon Judkins, who you and I both like, but right now sitting at 28. I thought that's surprising. I like Judkins actually a lot this week. Maybe I like going over the rankings. Why do you have Judkins as low as you do here?
The 49ers, even I told people Dowdle won't do anything against them.
Yeah.
49ers, the one thing the 49ers could do, they could defend the run. They rally and tackle. And you know what? This is Judkins ranking. You hear me every week. It's not his fault.
Right.
He's in a toxic situation. No team in the league respects the Browns' passing attack. So they know if you stop them on 1st and 2nd down, you're going to put them in 2nd and long and in 3rd and long, and they're going to have to pass. And that's exactly what you want Cleveland. Quinshon Judkins, and he's not even playing a heavy snap share. His snap share, I want to say, was around 50 last week. So, percent. So It's a problem. He's not getting enough snaps. He's not getting enough receiving work. And the defense are loading up something. And the 49ers, again, they're a very good run defense. This is a terrible matchup for Quinshon Judkins.
The other one, real quick before we head out, is Michael Wilson, who's been a darling the past 2 weeks with Marvin Harrison out due to the appendectomy. Again, I have had that actual surgery. I would be very surprised if Marvin Harrison plays this week, although we're trending close to that direction. Let's just say for this argument, Jim, Marvin Harrison does not play. Does Michael Wilson elevate even higher? I see you have him ranked at 24, Marvin at 23. Typically, when we've done these shows, that means that whoever ends up being the healthy one is 23. But I would almost make an argument that Michael Wilson probably should be higher if Marvin Harrison is out.
Yeah, I am expecting that Harrison would be back from this. It's like 2.5 weeks for an NFL player. That's about right, but every case is different. I would expect, and we're recording this Wednesday early, so there's no Wednesday pressure. So we have 0 to go on. If Harrison is out, I am moving Wilson all the way up to like 18, where
That's
Portland's
exactly.
and I might even bump him ahead of Devontae Smith, actually. So Chris Olave is kind of a good floor play, but Wilson has been phenomenal on the border. And the Buccaneers, they lost their top corner to an injury last week. I don't know if he'll be back this week, but that was a huge loss last week for them. And if they're without him, this is wheels up. The problem would be if Harrison comes back. Wilson was playing in the slot often, and that's not where he belongs. He's like a perimeter guy. I knew when Harrison got hurt that Wilson moved to the perimeter, and I said it's a good stylistic fit. But that's going to be a problem. They say they're going to keep getting Wilson the ball, but I worry they put him in the slot, and that's not his best use. But yeah, Harrison's out, wheels up. You just keep rolling up Michael Wilson.
Yeah, Jacoby Brissett said, I'll throw the ball to whoever's open, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean it's Michael Wilson or Marvin Harrison. That is probably the vet way to answer things, which is great. I will be a little surprised if Marvin Harrison is available. I think he would be a little bit limited as well, too. It is a conditioning thing in my mind. I know those guys are ultra athletes, but you're going to be rusty from the conditioning perspective. I'd be a little surprised if Marvin Harrison is available this week against the Buccaneers. All right, that does it for us on the Wednesday edition of your weekly rankings and Thanksgiving and Black Friday breakdown of the games as well, too. Appreciate you guys all following along. Back in next Wednesday as well, doing the same thing. And reminder that Jim will have his start-sit with James on the RotoWire YouTube page 2 hours before kickoff, starting on Sunday as well, too. So a lot more ways to find Jim. You can find me at JB Fantasy Sports on Twitter. I will be answering questions if you have any start-sit ones. Probably not Thursday. Doing about 3 hours of driving on Thursday. I would imagine I'm not checking my phone too much at that point, too. But, Jim, you can always get to you, too.
Yeah, and I tweeted out my ranking sheet. So if you're starting players on Thursday or Friday with the holiday, you're not going to be able to get a hold of many fantasy analysts with the holiday. So check the sheet. I updated it today. If there's injuries, I'll make a further update this evening. But that's kind of your go-to right now if you need a lineup decision. And remember, the Blues are only there because those are players for the holiday games that you might make decisions on.
There you go. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back in next week.